the female experience is both universal and extremely individual. And this is something that most of us don't grow up understanding, is how much natural and healthy variation there is. So if the only people we're talking to are our best friends or our moms, like, we may very well not have an accurate picture, or we may be comparing ourselves to something that just doesn't apply to us. And so, the hope really is that an app like Clue can help everyone understand, both what is unique about their cycles and their experience, and that, in all likelihood, they're not alone. In all likelihood, there is a whole community of folks out there who have a similar experience, whatever your particular issue or concern or interest or joy is. Clue is a menstrual cycle tracking app and reproductive health app more broadly as well. And so, what Clue allows you to do is you can track your menstrual cycle and related experiences. A lot of women and people with cycles have cyclical experiences that they only can really see when they track. And so that allows them to observe the patterns and also sort of observe what's normal for them. So that's one part of it. And the other part really is providing trustworthy science-based information on a bunch of topics around reproductive health. So the app does both of those things. And the vision for Clue ultimately is to really be this trusted companion that allows women to have a source of good information and a tool for self-knowledge throughout their lives. So from puberty through sexual education to contraception, conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, there are so many distinct stages of life. And each of these stages involves, really big biological and also psychological changes. And a lot of these things are badly understood by many women themselves. And so we're hoping to give people a tool for self-knowledge and empowerment, really, for that. The GDPR, the European General Data Protection Regulation, applies to us, which means we have to get user consent for everything we do with user data. And we do that through a privacy policy, which you have to agree to before you sign up to create an account. When you're thinking about how to educate users around privacy, you really have to hit the right balance between giving them the information they should have and not giving them so much information that they just click through and don't think about it and don't read it. And so the way we've tried to sort of strike that balance is in the privacy policy. We've tried to have a very, very clear, sort of user-friendly, not too technical initial summary section that hopefully gives you the answers to the questions that you have as kind of a normal person. And then also a longer technical section that allows you to dive into the detail if that's what you're into. Our fundamental commitment is to the user. And this kind of maybe goes to a broader point, which is, I think, something that everybody should ask themselves before they use an app that collects any kind of sensitive data from them is what is that app's business model? Who are they serving? Who are their stakeholders? And for us, Clue has very clearly defined that the stakeholder is the user, right? We are providing a service to users. And we do have a free service and we have a premium service that people can pay for. And what we're really working on is developing the subscription model where, we hope and believe that people will increasingly understand that to get a very good service and to be the customer rather than the product, you're going to ultimately have to pay something for that service, or at least a certain number of people will have to pay something. In order to provide these personalized insights, we have to collect the health data that people want to track. We only collect and store and process data that users choose to share with us. So I think the biggest thing we do fundamentally is we have a very clear delineation between how we treat health data and personally identifiable data versus usage data, right? So anything that you track in the app, which is your personal health data, will go straight to the back end. And the only stakeholder other than us. Whoever gets to see that is research institutions once it's been de-identified. And so it's de-identified, which means it gets a pseudonymous random ID that isn't linked to your personal information at all. And then it's also K-anonymous, which means that kind of guards against statistical re-identification. That is very distinct from usage data, which we do also analyze, right? We're an app, so we need to understand when something goes wrong. Things are constantly going wrong. Things are constantly being maintained. We have bugs, we've got to fix them. And that usage data, we do use tools, third-party tools to analyze that. That doesn't mean that data ever goes into the control of anyone else. So the usage data that you generate in the app to, contribute to our analytics, for instance, you can withdraw your consent to that. You can withdraw your consent to absolutely any marketing activities. Now, again, we would never allow health information to go anywhere near an ad network. So that's not even on the menu. But of course, we are an app. We are a mobile app. So we do online advertising for Clue. We don't give user data to advertisers ever. But if you want no part in that, you can also withdraw your consent to that. And you can write in and even withdraw your consent to the use of your de-identified data in scientific research. Now, that said, I don't think many people do that because most people understand that contributing de-identified data to these research projects is really part of the value of using an app like Clue. I mean, we don't make any money on it. We do it very much to further the mission and the health of users and everybody else. We're fundamentally here to empower the individual, and part of that is to empower the community, right? We want to empower scientists to do really great research, which we want to make sure turns into, interesting, ideally actionable insights for people with menstrual cycles, and we want to feed that back to our user community. So that's kind of the virtuous cycle that we're aiming for. Something that definitely serves that mission is the research collaborations that we have with various academic institutions who do get de-identified data sets from us. And there are some really, really fascinating research projects that Clue is able to support that would be extremely difficult to do without this kind of data. With Columbia University looking at associations between menstrual cycle characteristics and breast cancer. And so they're looking at the tracked cycle characteristics of people with different known probabilities of breast cancer to see if there are correlations there. We've got a really interesting research project with MIT looking at the relationship between air pollution and the menstrual cycle. And, this again, very, very difficult to get good data on this other than through an app like Clue, where we can actually look at a cohort of people who live, let's say, in a polluted city, and people who have similar other characteristics but don't. But it is not a sign that is easy to measure at a doctor's visit. It's a sign that fluctuates over sort of larger cycles, right? Both sort of monthly cycles and life stages. And so this is the kind of data and data set that is really uniquely able to answer questions about broader health. We very often hear from users who, for example, say that they were able to take the data that they tracked in Clue that showed a certain pattern or lack of pattern in their cycles to their doctor. And after years and years of, pain and misdiagnosis or no diagnosis, they can finally get a diagnosis that helps them understand what's going on with them. So very often that's the case for PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. This can be something that impacts their lives more than almost anything else. It can be something that has, gotten in the way of them finding and keeping a job. It can be something that means they've been trying unsuccessfully to conceive for years. Another example is, someone who has been tracking for a long time and has been, pretty regular, and then starts to realize that something's off. And because they've got that data and they can show their healthcare provider, hey, look, something's off. Like, this isn't normal for me. They can go and advocate for themselves, get the scan. And so often we get users writing in saying, thanks to the app, thanks to this data that I was able to show my healthcare provider, I got the scan and they caught the cancer early. And that is really a very, very common theme. And, that's why we all get up in the morning.